Today, we're going to be talking about the GE files, and if you don't know, here's the rundown. Pretty much, GE went through a situation during Masters London in where they were kind of showing inconsistent results. They almost make it into the playoffs, but from then on out, it seems like, okay, good signs. We finally make it into an international and are looking forward to be able to go into champs. Right now, at the moment, they're currently at EWC, about to play within the next couple of days. But bombshell news just dropped where there's reports initially that was rumored that Frost was being fired from GE. And this is strange news to hear because this is the first time that GE qualified for an international. And you're thinking like, wow, they're headed in such a good direction. Like, even though GE don't make it into playoffs, they don't make it into somewhat maybe have expected them to be, just because we saw how high their ceiling is, and they kind of fall short, especially against an XLG that kind of looked pretty beatable. And even a Lev, where we go back to that shot where it's 12 or 12-11 on Fracture, and Yudotan almost hits that op shot that completely changes their trajectory in the tournament. But anyways, we get rumors initially about Frost being fired, not parting ways, not being Frost leaving, him being fired. And for a couple of days, I believe there isn't really anything confirmed. And finally, there's a video drop by the CEO where he takes accountability, kind of steps up and say, hey, I was the one that kind of initiated the decision. Like, if anybody puts a blame it on me. And from there, people are like, let's read a little bit into it. Let's go a little bit down the file. And was there issues going on? And if a lot of people paid attention, if you can go into the Reddit forums, you can go on to X or Twitter, and you can see that a lot of people pointed out there's issues going into Masters London, where there was conflicts between the map vetoes and just a lot of comps where the players had to adjust. There's a lot of things being thrown at them from the coaching staff, and maybe the players weren't feeling like they were set up in the best position. And so finally, after a couple of days, we get news that they actually do fire them. And from there, it's actually that the players themselves, not the ownership and the managers, fire them. It's that the players, specifically one player, and that's Patmen, who decided that it was better off that Frost isn't on the team anymore. And so what I want to do is kind of weigh the argument of like, there's two sides of the coin between the coaching staff and management, and then also the players, because those two have to kind of be juggled together. You have the players, which are the product of the sport, like they are the ones that are going out and competing, just like in soccer, just like in basketball, just like in any sport. You have the players that are the value of the sport, and then you have the coaches that are trying to set up the players to be able to succeed and win, and sometimes even develop them. But the issue with esports is that a lot of the lifespan is a lot more shorter if you're not winning. And so there's a kind of a juggle between players that are stable and can have a multi-year career going into esports, or in this case Valorant, where sometimes they don't really have to worry about, even if I perform decently, like I am a staple of the sport and I'll be able to win. Like an example of that is, like, I think, not to throw any shade, but like Jogamo, where Jogamo has won champs with EG. He showed really great form. He wasn't necessarily like the superstar player with Demon 1, but in the sense of being a world championship player or world championship caliber player allows you to be able to be stable and kind of be, if another team takes a chance on you, it's like, oh, maybe they didn't utilize them that well. And in this case, we have Patmen, who is a world championship player with Paper X, but he wasn't necessarily the Masters MVP for that run in Toronto. And we're going to base off of these whole complex scenarios where coaches want to win, players want to win. They're all trying to win either for the love of the game or just to be able to secure their career in a simple sense. And so what I want to go through is the player's point of view. in this scenario will go how the players are sort of involved. Like in esports, especially, I noticed that it's a trend that where a lot of the basis of the game and how players end up winning is sort of like the vibes. Like, are people having fun? Are people enjoying, showing up for their teammates? Are their teammates fun to be around? And even if they're winning, like it's just like, or sorry, even if they're losing, it's like, okay, there's always something to improve on. There's always something to look forward to. If there's a good group, like there's always potential in there. And so for the players, if staff, or in this case, coach, were being too excessive, because if we look at GE, they're running multiple comps. We'll go into the best of threes where they're running 3 different agents for multiple players within a best of 3. If we're going to 3 maps, if we're going to best of 5 and we're hitting all 5 maps, they're probably going through a variety of agents per person. Like an example of that is Autumn. He's a chamber player, but also can play ISO and also can play smokes. He's playing their Viper, and another example of that is Patmen. He's playing Duelist. He can play Waylay. He can play Omen. He can also play Initiator. Like, there is flex, but sometimes flexing is too much, and that can overwhelm a team that's just simply like, okay, if we just do the standard default stuff, then most likely we'll probably end up getting more consistent results and develop a more consistent ceiling rather than like a win-loss streak, as which GE kind of did end up going into the beginning of the year. And even in Masters London, they lose the first one, win the second one, and lose the last one. And so this inconsistency is a problem when there's a lot of variety in different map pools, a lot of variety in different comps. And so in the player's point of view, it's like, okay, if there's a lot of being thrown at us and we're a new team, it's just too much to be able to handle, especially with a coach that's really blunt and really transparent about how things are going on. And so on the other hand, you're dealing with complex issues of dealing with different situations with different agents. Like, imagine playing split and being the Viper player, but then on the next game against the Paper X, you're gonna have to play Sage. Like, there's different run-throughs, different lineups, different scenarios, and where you're gonna have to be playing a lot different. And this is on a consistent basis. And so it's kind of hard to juggle. Along with that, you also have to encounter the team dynamics of like, okay, is the people I'm around, like, actually people that I see that are developing me, rather than seeing it as like, oh, they're yelling at me because they most likely hate me. Oh, I can see that they just want the better out of me. Or some players, they see that and say, hey, they're just hating on me. Like, they just don't get it. Like, being a player is totally different than being a coach. And so in this version of where Patmen may be the person that pushed the button and said, yeah, Frost, like, this ain't gonna cut it, I think it's hard to be able to have that leverage in this scenario where everything is highly scrutinized. Where Patmen, yes, isn't a superstar, but he's a superstar on GE. Everybody's rooting for Patmen, as in he has that underdog mentality, and so he's kind of like the golden child of GE, of where he has a championship, but he still has a chip on his shoulder, and so everybody wants to root for him, and so he has that leverage. But then you have a coach like Frost, who has been through multiple iterations and multiple years in esports and different leagues and different regions, initially going from NA to APAC and be able to be successful in both. It's like you have that established history. Like, how is it that this person is able to be, not have that much leverage in negotiations of like, okay, this is my team. I'm the one that brought this team to be able to be in an international. Now, after 2 stages, after kickoff and stage 1, like, it's just it. Like, we're building on something that consistently could become something better. We're developing these players. And that's the flip side of like being the coach. Not only are you being the coach where you're setting the game plan, you're running the comps, you're constantly going through VODs and scrims and being the person that has to manage not only the game plan, but you're also having to manage team dynamics and also having to give the truth, because at the end of the day, a coach's value is only in the results. You've seen it in Kaplan. Like, funny enough, I was sitting down thinking about this, like this whole GE scenario where, like, damn, a coach gets kicked. We don't really know the true confirmed details of it, but it's like a coach has success, and then out of nowhere they just get kicked, even though they've had developed some sort of consistency, in the sense of where Kaplan and Frost aren't in the same category, because Kaplan has won a master trophy, whereas Frost is working on getting there, but has been successful and consistent with other teams in other regions. And so the main factor is consistency. Is the coach developing consistency, and are they in a way showing that they have potential? Because in Frost's scenario, you're jumping from initially planning to work with talent, and in this case, full sense, because they eventually go to full sense. You're planning on working in talent at the beginning of the season. You're planning on developing the already core you established, and then out of nowhere, shit hits the fan, and you have to go and jump and find a new employment. You have to find a new place to work. And so he finds GE, which is a good scenario. He finds a good amount of people where they have potential, and we're going to develop them. But then out of nowhere, he gets blindsided by this. And so if you put yourself in the shoes, like, the coach is in a new scenario where they're constantly having to kind of play catch up, and where I initially was planning to work with this core, but then I have to jump onto this new core. And it's just, again, from an outsider's perspective, we can think, oh, that's just a luxury. Like, you're working in esports, like, you're working most people's dream job. So, like, you just have to suck it up. And I think one thing I want to dive deeper into is the team dynamics, because that seems like the biggest factor coming into the story. And the team dynamics are so interesting in that, as a coach, again, your value is your results. If you're not winning, then you're most likely gonna get kicked. And in the sense of, like, you kind of have to be a best friend of the players, but also being able to tell them the truth. And sometimes the truth hurts, and the truth is what's going to keep you hired and what's going to keep you, having a living wage. And so the balance is that, like, yes, I want you to improve, but I also have to tell you the truth, and that's going to hurt a lot of people's feelings. And where a lot of the players are not used to team environments. They're constantly playing ranked, and yes, they deal with toxic people, but you're in a team environment where you're going to have to go through adversity. You're not used to having somebody that is somewhat your friend, or your coach, in the sense, constantly telling you, hey, fix this, or hey, I saw you do really good right here, but you're going to have to improve more and more and more. I want improvement out of you, because at the end of the day, my job is to make sure this team wins. And so in Frost, like, some of it is what's the word, like, some of it is valid in the sense of, like, Frost is transparent, Frost is blunt, but it's also, like, at some points maybe it's too far, and we don't know what too far is. But from the outside looking in, it just seems like, hey, this dude or this coach has results. Maybe he hasn't had the most time to be able to show those results, and also he also kind of outs his players, but that's just how he is, and he's really transparent about, hey, I just want to win. Like, I just want to win because that's what I'm paid to do. And so at the end of the day, it's hard to be able to say, oh, one side is right, just because there's multiple different perspectives. I give you the perspective of the players, I give you the perspective of the coaches. Again, coaches aren't supposed to be your best friend. They can be your best friend there, but they're not hired there to be there. They're help you to be there to win. And so, yeah, I think this is important because it really shines a light on inner team dynamics that maybe a lot of social media and from the outside looking in doesn't show, because there's so much inner dynamics that go into play when it comes to teams, because we can see a Paper X and say, wow, this is a funny, charismatic team that, the coaches raged at them, but it's funny. But these are actually human people that are constantly navigating through relationships and playing a game that pays them, really well, but also they have to, do things that they don't really enjoy, and they have to travel to places away from their family. And especially like VCT Pacific, where a lot of people are being imported to Korea just to play a video game, and they're going through months, maybe a whole year without seeing their family. And so this is real stuff like on the line, and real people's lives that we kind of just see as entertainment. And so from the human perspective, it's a hard call to be able to look at this and say, like, this is something that is, this is something that, yes, is enticing, but it's something that we shouldn't like be numb to, if that makes sense. So yeah, that is the GE files, because again, if we look at GE, their fan base really loves them. I remember even watching some of the watch partiers in Masters London, where people would show up in GE gear, or supporting GE even though they weren't in internationals beforehand. And so there's a core fan base that generally does love them, but within the inconsistent results, like being able to finally qualify for the first time, and then on the backhand of that, you get your coach and your assistant coach fired or part ways. It just seems like esports isn't at a place where systems aren't properly like relegated, in the sense of like, compared to like a NBA, where okay, pros basketball players are kind of lined up, and it's kind of systematic, and like, okay, they're preparing for the league, they know what to expect, they're also getting paid a lot more money than VCT pros, but it's a lot more systematic of like, there's communities in there that prepare you for how to handle the spotlight, how to navigate relationships. And whereas VCT, a lot of people are experiencing new things for the very first time, and a lot of the reactions are knee-jerk, and a lot of the reactions may happen through inexperience. There's a lot of players that are 18 through 22 to maybe even 25 years old, and maybe they just don't get what's happening in the moment until later on, and say, oh wow, I messed up in this, or wow, like, I didn't realize this in this moment, this meant something to me, I didn't realize it. So yeah, that's been this video, and that's been the GE files, and I'll talk to you again.